Okay, it is time. The character I think we've all been waiting for has finally returned. Well, before we get into it, if you like the content, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be making more chapter reviews for MHA and potentially more going forward. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're interested in that kind of content. But anyway, algorithm aside, so I want to talk about everything that's happened in this chapter, as well as everything that's kind of happened in the war so far, because I believe it's had its ups and downs, but most of the downs come from this fucking guy. But I'll get to that. But anyway, we finally open up the chapter with a full color spread, revealing All Might's Iron Might suit. And honestly, I was expecting it to be red and blue, but I think the black and gold fits so much better. It kind of gives me a Batman vibe, especially since he was kind of like the de facto Superman of this universe prior. But cool suit aside, we actually get to see a little All Might, but this is not about him because his mom is fucking fucked. Sorry about that outburst. But anyway, we open up with little All Might reading comics alongside his mother, and honestly, the last few chapters have really shown me we don't actually know much about All Might for as long as we've been following him, and it kind of creates this sense of like, you know, this is a human that has really put his all to save the world when he was born quirkless. It really shows how much of a true hero he was, because when the going got tough, a lot of the heroes quit, and this man, without a quirk, without being able to defend himself in any way, went up against one of the strongest villains in the series.
Yo, get off that nigga dick, bro. What is you doing?
But we cut to All Might, and he's walking down this stone path, and he's lamenting on his past decisions. As he says to himself, the one thing I've done the most is looking back at the path I took, because every single step looks so important. But since the heroes can't have nice things, this flashback is interrupted by AFO, with a malicious grin on his face, a grin that is actually kind of tearing his face apart, I might add, as he destroys the gauntlet that All Might is wearing, as he gloats to him about how he'll never let him die a hero's death, as he activates his new quirk Blood Curl that he acquired from what I believe is now the presumably dead Stain, which, crazy foreshadowing, Hori. Man's name Stain, all that's left of him is the Stain. I see you.
That one there was a violation, personally I wouldn't have it.
But with the activation of this new quirk, All Might is left paralyzed, and the one smile on his face is now despair, as AFO begins to mock him, as he says, "You're finally all out of tricks. Wounded heroes are always the scariest. I know that very well. But now you cannot move a single muscle. And yes, that face is what I wanted to see when you're at your lowest point." And my god, man, that is just... All Might has been through so much, man. He don't deserve this. And while this is all happening, we cut back to the still falling UA, which how hot did they put that damn thing up? This shit has been falling for over a year in real life now. But there's a brief glimmer of hope, since now that the Twice clones are gone, Gentle could potentially start helping out with the fight against AFO and Shigaraki. But... Psych! AFO shoots that shit back to the ground, and it is back to falling. But you think when they loaded a bunch of children and a man that could literally destroy anything with a single touch onto a floating school, you would maybe think they would make some sort of escape mechanism, but you know, the smartest rat on the planet designed that, so you take with that as you will. Anyway, the Star and Stripe Brigades come in with their laser cannons to assist with the battle against All For One, and one of them mentions that what if we hit All Might in the battle, but you know, this is America, collateral damage is just a byproduct of what we do, alright? So they go in for the attack, and AFO basically just, I believe he just looks at them and they just explode. They could potentially still be alive, but as for the Jets, they're no longer in the battle. And Akbar is just feeling hopeless watching from America, and it seems to be going around because Deku, Fukauchi, Melissa, Gran Torino, and everyone around the world is just watching as All Might is hopelessly lifted in the air by One For All, and he begins to tear him apart, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm clenched up like I've never been before, because we knew All Might was gonna die a violent death, but this is kind of violent even for MHA, and I'm just watching this thinking this is just madness. As Fukauchi begins to beg for someone to please save All Might, there's a gleaming light coming off of UA, and standing at the center of it is who else but the prodigal son himself, Bakugo.
I'm gonna come.
Who's still looking beaten and bloody, but he still stands strong, holding his All Might card in his hand, as we're first treated to a title card, The End of an Era. As him and Deku lock eyes, we cut back to the flashback from the start of the chapter of All Might walking that stone path, as Deku and Bakugo pick up the lights. And we cut back to them locking eyes again, as fire begins to glow in both of their eyes, as we're treated to the final title card, The Beginning. And oh my god, that was an amazing chapter. And I think this leads us into the final battle of the manga, which is probably going to be Bakugo versus All For One and Deku versus Shigaraki. And don't forget that we still actually do have to come back to the present Mike, Eraserhead, and Kurogiri / Shirakumo thing that's going on, because it hasn't been mentioned in a while, and I think a lot of people have forgotten about it. As well as, like, I do think we can still talk about the hospital, as well as all the stuff going on with Aoyama, because he did mention that today was his last day at UA, and we don't really know what that means yet. And I gotta talk about the chapter itself, because I see a lot of people online speculating about Bakugo's eyes, because they're having that weird glowing effect, and a lot of people think that this is back to the 2 Heroes Rising movie, or I think it was just Heroes Rising movie, when Bakugo took in One For All. But I don't actually think that might be the case, because we did see before he died that his eyes did have that glowing effect, and I think that might just be a byproduct of his quirk, but I'm not sure yet. I think either option could be true. Because we did see all that stuff with him seeing the All Might vestige just before he died, as well as the vestige leaving Deku just shortly before we presumed All Might was going to die. And I know I also got to touch on some of the stuff that's been happening in the war arc. I might make a full video on everything that's happened so far, but for right now I'm just going to touch on a few things and how I feel about it. And how I feel is, like, for the most part, I've been enjoying the war arc. I do believe that these are some of, like, the most well-drawn manga panels that I've ever seen, as well as some well thought out battles and designs. But I have to touch on one glaring flaw that I can't stand, and that's AFO. He's become way too powerful, and it really seems like every time someone's about to get a major, like, plot development or hit a major story beat, he just pulls out some ass pull power up that makes no sense, and all of a sudden he is more powerful than he was one scene ago. It's just been ridiculous. Like, for example, when he was battling Jiro and she hit him with her heartbeat wave, which sent all his quirks in like a tizzy. He wasn't able to fly, he wasn't able to see, he wasn't able to hear. Then all of a sudden he just, like, ate the quirks and went back to being normal. And then with Endeavor, where he basically burnt this man into a damn emoji, and all of a sudden now he can rewind, which is crazy because we've seen Aries' ability before, and first of all, she can't rewind herself, and usually the rewind happens instantaneously. This man has been rewinding for like over 100 chapters, which I believe turns into like 40 minutes of MHA time. And that's still ridiculous, especially since most of that time he's been like in his 20s to teenage years, which he should have rewinded into like basically a staying on a dorm room sock. And let's not even talk about Tokoyami and all the kids from Shuketsu High, because they basically had some of the heaviest hitters in the series pull up on this man, and they essentially got off screen. And let's not talk about Stain, because he basically came back into the manga for what, like 2 chapters before AFO pulled out some BS power about how he can replace his blood, and then essentially also off-screen Stain. And finally there's the Star and Stripe Brigade, who put up a good fight against him when he was that Shigaraki All For One fusion, but somehow they get one-shotted in this chapter, and it's kind of making it hard to believe that AFO can be defeated, and it's going to seem even more unbelievable when he's inevitably defeated by Bakugo. And actually, it's even crazier to think that he was defeated by All Might, when back then all Might could do was just punch really, really hard. So it creates a sense of disbelief, because it's like this man has went to Walmart and just bought all the quirks, because it's like he could pull out anything at any time and it would just be justified as, oh well, he thinks ahead. I don't know. But anyway, enough of my rant. Besides that though, a lot of the other stuff in the manga, some have been hits, some have been misses for me. Overall, I do think I'm enjoying it as a whole, because I do believe that some of the fights have been like absolutely amazing. Like, I loved Toga's fight with Ochako, and I did actually love the Dabi versus like the rest of his family fight. And I look forward to seeing, actually, even though all the crazy stupid power-ups that AFO has gotten, I actually do look forward to seeing what happens with the rest of the manga. And I do look forward to seeing how his story ends as well, and hoping that we get a little bit more into his backstory. Because I do think that despite his like crazy, stupid, like ass pull powers, he does have some interesting stuff that's going on in his background that we know nothing about. But anyway, if you made it to this far in the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm still new here, and I'm still trying to grow a subscriber base. I'm trying to hit 100 by November. I know it might be a little bit ambitious, but so you guys have been showing me a lot of love on my shorts, and I really appreciate it. And the only way to see more of me is to actually subscribe. So if you guys are down for that, feel free to rock with me as we go forward. And anyway, if you guys have any comments, especially about this chapter or with AFO, I think right now he's kind of full of ass pulls. I do like the character still, but I think right now they've kind of made him still a little too powerful, as I said before. But if you guys love him, please be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And thanks again for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.